But basically, Adam, how we like to start these off is just introducing yourself, and then however much you care to share in answer to the question, what was it like? That general, like, what was it like before recovery type question.
All right, I can field that, and I can talk probably at some length. So let me adjust this a little bit so I'm more comfortable. Um, I'm Adam. I identify as a person in long-term recovery. I had my last drink March 21st of 2012. 3, 2, 1, 1, 2. How about that? Um, I don't know. There's numerology anywhere if you want to look hard enough, I guess. Um, but it's been a few days since I had my last drink. Um, there were a bunch of factors, a bunch of things kind of converged at once to make that my last drink. And the situation that I was presented with, I didn't really have any options at the time. I was looking at either stopping, ceasing cessation of alcohol intake, or probably death. Um, I got sober through the 12 steps of AA, after trying a bunch of other things myself and not having any luck. And I had tried AA several times, and I finally committed to it after that last point. Went through the 12 steps, got a sponsor, got two. Still reach out to the program occasionally when I feel like the batteries need a recharge. But what it was like, and I'll try not to run this like an AA meeting, but I've got a lot of experience there, so I'll probably lapse. There's a fun term. Fall into familiar, kind of patterns. Um, I was kind of destined. I say destined. I don't know. I feel like I was destined to be an alcoholic from the get go. Um, I joke with folks in AA. I'm like, my initials are AA, so it's like, oh wow, you guys already have a seat for me. It's kind of really a stupid joke, but you get my point. Um, my mother was a drinker. I didn't really know my dad. My mother's side of the family had some pretty prominent alcoholism. She drank, her mother drank, um, her brother and sister both drank. Um, my grand, hey Zach, um, my grandmother basically drank herself to death. My mother's mother drank herself to death. She had a blood disorder, which resulted in aneurysms. And she would be like half a bottle of wine deep by 10 o'clock because I think honestly it was a self-soothing kind of mechanism for her. Um, but there were red flags all over the place from the genetic kind of side. And I don't remember my mom not drinking and driving. I remember my mom always had a vodka and tonic in the car whenever she was driving me and my sister around. We never really thought anything of it because we grew up with that as a norm. That was regular for us. That was mom always drank. There was no such. I didn't know what alcoholism was until they taught us about it in school. As a lot of us really kind of just didn't. Um, I remember drinking after a Thanksgiving. I remember smoking pot and also drinking after a Thanksgiving when I was like 11 years old with my cousins and the neighbors. Um, and I didn't really get drunk, but I got a little bit of a buzz and I thought that was awesome. Um, Fast forward to my freshman year in high school, and I went to a party that was like hosted at Pine Point Beach. It was a junior senior party, kind of the jocks out with a bonfire. Um, my recollection, what limited there was from the beginning, was that it was a pretty great party. But I had pilfered from my mom, from her stash. I had taken a clearly Canadian bottle full of vodka, one full of amaretto, and one full of coffee brandy. And I had no idea how to drink. I had no idea how to mix drinks or how to moderate or whatever. Um, I pounded the vodka, I pounded the amaretto, I got halfway through the coffee brandy. I ended up in a blackout. I remember a friend of mine who's still a friend of mine to this day, a guy that I actually do some business with in town. It's funny some of the relationships you keep, right? His wife, Denise, pulled me out of the surf at Pine Point Beach in a blackout, shit-faced, and we jokingly say now, it's like, you saved my life. That's the first time, Denise, that somebody saved my life while I was drunk. And I remember it, and I thank her for it occasionally. So there were red flags, right? And that was my freshman year. I was like 14, maybe 13 or 14 at the time. I didn't stop drinking until 2012 when I was 35 years old. The career of drinking, I had way more lows than highs. I had some highs. Whoa, my image changed. I had some highs out of the gate, like the typical, I guess the typical imposter syndrome kind of fear, like it eased the social apprehension, it eased the social discomfort with associating with people outside of my age. I could dance. I had less apprehension about, like hitting on somebody or asking somebody out, going on a date. Going on a date wasn't a problem. It was getting to that point, that level of comfort and communication, and breaking the ice was really hard for me. I felt like I didn't have a lot of friends through high school, and that was amplified by, I guess, the fact that I could ease those negative emotions with alcohol consumption, and that. Sorry. Oh,
Sorry, Adam, keep going. I'm muting new people as they come on.
oh, right on. Yeah. So like that in turn kind of led to, like, you're hanging out with people that it was it's a form of confirmation bias. It's like, fuck the world. I'm gonna drink the fucking world away. And then you find all these people who are like, fuck the world. We're gonna drink the world away. And all of a sudden you've got a clique and you've got friends. And you can sell those friends drugs. And shit, man, it was on. I joke with some of the folks that I work with in the cannabis industry now that I never sold a legal bit of pot in my life. And I think that that's the case. I was in marketing and distribution from, I don't know, probably sophomore, junior year, straight through until legalization like blossomed on the horizon here in Maine. That was a backdrop to my drinking, in a sense. It's like I always saw myself as associating with folks of lurid social character, of questionable background. And I guess I kind of fit in, or I told myself that I fit in. And as a self-fulfilling prophecy, I ended up with a criminal record. We went into this on a retreat, and I didn't get into like super great details, but I do have a criminal record. I picked up a Class A and a Class C felony while I was drinking. I didn't hurt anybody. I didn't steal anything. There was no damage to anything. I walked into a garage, privately owned garage. It wasn't my garage, and grabbed a can of gas that was mixed with oil. And I could tell it was mixed with oil because it was darker than the other canisters of gas, which were clear, lighter in color. Took it out to this guy's driveway. I dumped it out and I lit it. Burned itself out by the time the fire department showed up, which, they were called because he saw fire in his fucking driveway out his window and freaked out. That was my intent, was to scare him. And I ended up getting an arson and a burglary charge out of it. So it's a Class A and a Class C felony. Here in Maine, you can't have that expunged. You carry it around for your life like luggage. And it has certainly induced some barriers to employment and professional development in my life. And I still encounter them on a daily basis. So that was another red flag in the whole drinking career. But did that, tell me that I should stop drinking? That didn't tell me I should stop drinking. My lawyer told me I should stop drinking. My probation officer told me I should stop drinking. Society pretty much told me I should stop drinking. But I found ways to buck that system. I was on probation for 4 years. As a result, is one of the charges, or one of the penalties handed down, the punishments handed down, was 4 years of probation. My lawyer told me at the time, well, you'll only do 2 years as long as you don't, violate, good behavior for 4 years. And I did 4 years to the day. whatever, it's in the it's in the rear view now, so I don't really lament it so much as opportunity lost. The opportunity cost of the decisions that I made is still coming around full circle. And I don't know. I'm rambling at this point. Um,
That's okay.
yeah, yeah, bring me back in.
I mean, we didn't really have like a ton of time to do a good intro because of the technical delay, my bad. But, the point of these stories is to just be like open and authentic and like share, the parts of your story that you feel like others can learn from and relate to. So usually like the next phase of the story that we tend to go into is just like what happened, like what got you sober, like what finally like brought the change and how did
Sweet,
yeah.
sweet, because I was meandering my melancholy ass to that point. So moving right along. Um, Series of red flags. Had a marriage. The marriage, I gave away to alcoholism. Um, I finally hit a breaking point. Um, and I went to AA. And AA, when I walked the walk, when I got a sponsor and I did most of what he suggested. His first suggestion was you should be in a sober living situation. You're going to relapse. You're going to go back out again if you don't get into a sober living situation. And I had my own apartment. I wasn't gonna throw that away. And retrospectively, I'm glad I didn't. That was his advice. And I guess that's the only advice that he offered that I did not take. I went to one meeting a day, at least one meeting a day for the first 90 days. I think it's like 108 or something in the first 90 days. Um, I stepped into a facilitation role in the program where I was opening up a meeting at a local detox before it closed, which is its own side story, which I could fill half an hour with, but I won't. Um, I opened that meeting up for about 6 months, and I didn't have to chair it per se because there was always a speaker assigned. I just had to get all the chairs set up, get everything ready to go, and everything ready when the speaker got there. I think there's maybe one case where the speaker didn't show up, and I had to fill with my story for the time. Um, but it was a detox meeting, so there were folks in there detoxing off, you name it, and I mean, crystal, heroin, opioids of all forms, alcohol. The Mercy detox, the Mercy rehab was really great back before it closed because they would help pretty much anybody. Um, those folks were all in Johnny's, and they were all, looking at me, and some of them were shaking, and some of them couldn't even make the meeting because they were too fresh off the bus. And it was an open meeting in the sense that their family and folks would be there in support. Other alcoholics would be present. Um, but it was a fresh reminder for me for a solid 6 months of to reinforce the decision that I had made, if that makes sense. Um, and it worked. I knock on wood because tomorrow's a brand new day. We've got substance use disorder, which is not being medicated per se. I'm not in a medically assisted treatment system. So I address that pretty much every day. I address it every day. And that's one of the things that I took from Alcoholics Anonymous. You don't really have 12 years. You have, what time did you get up today? Kind of deal. And it's in hours and it's a day-to-day thing. And I subscribe to that because of this detox experience. Going there for opening this meeting for 6 months and seeing some of those faces 3 and 4 fucking times in 6 months. I mean, knowing how easy it is to make a decision that can reverse progress that has been made. And that was why I laid a foundation with that detox meeting. Since then, I haven't, and again, knock on wood, I haven't had an alcohol recurrence. I smoke cannabis on a pretty regular basis. I will avoid doing that in situations where it could affect my driving or my ability to interact with others. I had an internship recently where I was working with a bunch of kids 13 to 17, and they were all in a boys group home. And that was a substance use free facility, aside from the nicotine patches that they gave them. That's another conversation I could fill 30 minutes with. Long story short, I would make it a point not to smoke in any proximity to that situation, because first of all, I don't want to go in smelling like marijuana, because that'd be a shitty thing to do. And second of all, I don't want to put it in these kids' faces, because a lot of them have issues with substance misuse, primarily pot for these kids. And I don't want them thinking, well, you know, I'm just going to put it in your face. That's just a shitty thing to do. It's horrible. And let me let you in on a side thing here. So one of the jobs that I have in the cannabis industry right now is trimming. And if you've ever worked in or around cannabis, fresh marijuana smells very strongly. And if you're trimming it for, say, 6 or 8 hours or 15 or whatever in the course of a couple of days, the clothing that you're wearing is going to come to smell very strongly, even your shoes. And I wore a garment to this internship that I didn't even realize it. I didn't give it a sniff test. They knew exactly what was up when I was there. And they knew that it wasn't that I was smoking pot. They knew that I had come from a grow, because they could smell the difference between fresh cannabis and freshly consumed cannabis. So anyway, a little humor, a little side humor.
They like knew their stuff really well.
These kids, I say, well, they're fucking kids, but yeah, they're out of Long Creek. Long Creek is Southern Maine's youth center, and they knew exactly what was up, and that got me some great street cred with them. You know, not gonna lie, but that was not my intent. And I think whatever street cred I got with them, I certainly burned with the existing staff. So there's that. So I don't cling to the term sober. I think the term sober means different things to different people. I think that if you get up in the morning and you have to have a cup of coffee, you're addicted to something. Caffeine's addictive. And I think that there are certain substances which our society has allowed, you know, turned, it's a nodded, you know, given an okay to: nicotine, tobacco, caffeine. There are some other ones out there too. Some are less often used, but the last time I checked, Xanax was the most commonly prescribed medication, and that's prescribed for anxiety. And you know, I deal with anxiety on a pretty regular basis. I do medically assisted treatment. I would suppose cannabis intake for anxiety and depression, but more for a muscle relaxant, because I am way too physically active all the time. And that's one of my kind of like my counters for my I don't know, ADHD or addictive mind, addictive personality. I throw that into working out. I throw it into physical activity. Today I went and tried to climb a mountain in a snowstorm. So bring this back together. I quit drinking in 2012. I stuck with AA pretty regularly for, I want to say, the better part of 2 years. And I kind of faded out in my third year, because it just started to feel like I was doing the same things, not for me, but entirely possible. I don't know.
Okay.
So yeah, so I was in AA for probably 2 years, going to regular meetings. Then I backed off the program a little bit, because it felt to me like I didn't need to have recovery for every meal at every sitting of every day. And I guess for some folks, that's essential. I would hear people in meetings, in AA meetings, saying, I've been sober for 15 years and this is my second meeting today. And shit like that gave me the creeps. I mean, I don't despise that community, but I don't see making myself and my recovery the same. So I did the AA thing for 2 years. I backed off out of it. I still have tons of friends from that community. I still have 2 sponsors, one of whom is a practicing counselor, a practicing substance misuse counselor. The other guy is he owns property in Florida now. So they're both doing well, and they're both sober, you know. When I feel actually, let me include another piece here that's really kind of important. 5 years into my sobriety, 5 years into my abstaining from alcohol, 5 years after my last drink, my partner left me, and she left me with a note. Now, she had been my partner for 11 years, so it was a long time, and it eclipsed this whole relationship that I had. Well, it eclipsed the relationship that I had like ending with alcohol. So it's like when I quit drinking, we were going through a bit of a bout at the time, and it took my understanding at the time was it took my sobriety to make that relationship even possibly fixable. And we were taking steps towards fixing it. I thought it's also kind of amorphous. She let me know that she wouldn't stop drinking because she was a bartender and it was part of her job. Now, if you think drinking is part of your job as a bartender, you're probably not doing the best job as a bartender, but that's her inventory and she can explain that to some other group of people. I should have recognized that that was a sign of non-sustainability in this relationship, that she wasn't willing to. I didn't want her to quit drinking. The way it kind of shook out is I asked her to give me a heads up when she would be drinking. So if she came home from the bar from work and I went to kiss her when she walked in the door, I didn't get a mouthful of vodka because it's probably the only time I'll use it, but that's a trigger for me. You know, having alcohol in my mouth makes me want to have more alcohol in my mouth. Go figure. And she addressed that as me trying to control her drinking, which maybe it was. But that was one of the final like bones of contentment. It really rifted us apart and we ended up splitting. She left me pretty shortly after like one of those conversations. And at that point, 5 years into no alcohol, I had pretty much not severed ties, but I cut a lot of my connections with AA. I didn't have much of a network for support. So 5 years like in, and she left, and I was like, all right, well, I'm either going to go out and drink or I'm going to kill myself, and I'm not sure which. So I reached out to my sponsor. Good move. That's what sponsors are for. I reached out to my sponsor and he said, why don't you get your ass to a meeting? So I got my ass to a meeting and I found another home group and I kind of made a place for myself in that community for a little while, until I felt like I was able to not think about hurting myself 24 hours of every day. So anyway, my point is I used Alcoholics Anonymous to quit drinking. And then at a later stage in my recovery, I went back to Alcoholics Anonymous for support with an emotional issue, with a behavioral health issue. And I was able to find that there, even though I wasn't asking for it from them by those terms. So take, do with that what you will. My point is there is connection and community out there. And sometimes it isn't the connection and community that we want, and it doesn't look like what we would really want it to look like. And it certainly doesn't look like a fucking Hallmark movie, man. But that shit saves lives. Saves lives. So, I mean, I know now that if the world was going to end tomorrow and I felt for whatever reason I had to catastrophize and I needed a drink, that there is an AA community that I could reach out to and they would be supportive of me. And I know that from my past experience reaching out to them. So that's all I will say that about AA. I mean, I think that they serve a certain purpose. I also think that they put a lot of people out with their inability to be flexible about other substance misuse, and their traditional pathways and their routines and their mandates around the 12 steps and how those have to be done in a certain order, etc. I think that puts some people away, and that causes long-term, that causes death. So, it's been 12 years. I don't feel like I need to drink every day. I don't want to drink every day. Once in a while, it seems like a drink would be good. I'll tell you, I went to Burning Man this year, which was absolutely phenomenal. And it was It was challenging, but it wasn't nearly the challenge I fucking thought it would be. The people, the cats, Carrie and Zach and Megan and Melissa and fucking David and everybody, Astrid, everybody in our camp was supportive and sober and just great, just so awesome. I felt like I could bring strangers to our camp and introduce them to people I had just met, and they would be supportive of them in sobriety. I mean, that it speaks volumes. Um, I felt like even strangers there, like anyone who's never been to Burning Man, it's an affair. But like you'll be walking down the street and somebody will be like, champagne, and they will be aggressive and they will want you to have that champagne. And it's like all you have to do is say, man, I don't drink. And they're like, all right, orange juice. And they're jamming orange juice down your throat. So it's like, given what I've seen and given the fact that I also work in behavioral health. I'm a certified alcohol drug counselor now. Yay! And I'm still trying to overcome boundaries that are barriers I set up myself for the whole fucking criminal record thing. Take those one at a time. Shit, I totally lost my train of thought. Carrie, bring me back in.
Well, I was just gonna, add to that, how like grateful I am that it has gotten better at Burning Man, because like this year was your first year and it was like so amazing having you in our camp. And my first year was what, 2012? And so Zach and I have been both drinking and alcohol free. And like my first alcohol free year, I feel like I did get more judgment. Like, what do you mean you don't drink? Like, that's no fun, like that kind of stuff. And over like the last several burns, I really have like noticed a difference. Like, people are way more like supportive of alcohol free burners, and there's just like way more options out there. So that being said, it's great. And also like, I do know, a lot of people, particularly from like the more traditional AA circles, that might just automatically hear you're going to Burning Man and be like, that's a terrible idea. So, yeah, I guess like with all of that in mind, and I appreciate like how open you've been about how like plant medicine is a part of your alcohol-free life and that's not like a conflict for you. Like what are your tools nowadays besides AA meetings? Like, what keeps you sober or alcohol?
Brutal mindfulness. I spend way too much time thinking about things. I don't know if there's too much time, but I spend a lot of time focused on what could potentially be outcomes of decisions. Um, Christ. I'm trying to embrace the process and not the outcome. Um, my tools are like a fucking undying curiosity. I am so curious about so many things, and I keep finding new shit that is just like, wow, how did I get to be 48 and not fucking know about that? And that's what I'm living for these days. Like, Burning Man, holy shit. How can I not go back next year? I feel like that is now something that I need to experience again and again and again. And I could again fill half an hour or longer with the Burning Man thing, but another experience. So like I've been listening to a bunch of podcasts. I think podcasts are great, and I'm not talking about Joe fucking Rogan. I listen to 10% Happier pretty regularly. I think he changed the name of it. Dan Harris. And this is a guy who was in broadcast journalism and had an anxiety attack in the wake of I believe some withdrawal from cocaine. And he's standing there, sitting there with a camera on him, trained on him, and just being like homina, 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 And he took a huge step back and he embraced a Buddhism practice. And now he's this freaking meditation guru, and he's great. Long story short, I've been listening to his stuff and soaking it up. He's got a recurring host on there. The guy's name's Alexis Santos. and Alexis Santos' bio is in the show notes. And he's in a group in Portland, Maine. And I'm like, Portland, Maine? Well, wait a minute. I know where that is. And so it's like, this isn't a huge community here. So I went and sat at a Dharma meeting last week with a friend of mine. And it was random too, because it was like, she was like, oh my God, I need a sign. What are you doing right now? I'm like, I'm going to a Dharma meeting. That's a sign. You need to come with me right now to a Dharma meeting. You're like 15 minutes away. Why the hell aren't you on the way? So she came and we both got a lot out of it. But one of the points that I'm still really wrapping my head around, and I want to try to convey that. And I mentioned it to Carrie too. So this is it's what happened today in a nutshell. You know, it's like you can want an outcome, you can want an ending, you can want a result, and you can have expectations around those results. But expectations are just like resentments waiting to happen. And I think that what I picked up from this Dharma meeting is that it's possible to embrace the change and to embrace the method and to embrace the process without being fixed on the outcome. So today for Adam, that's what happened. It's like I went off and I went to hike Mount Adams, not Adams, which is the same mountain that Carrie and Zach and I hiked when they were up here last year.
In a nice time of year, I will say.
Very nice, soft time of year, warm even. When I went up there today, it started like the parking lot. There was no snow in the parking lot, but it went to blizzard conditions up around tree line, and there was snow probably a mile in. There was snow. Up at tree line, there were gusts of 70 to 80 mile an hour winds, and the wind chill was at -25, maybe -30. So I got like 3 steps out of the woods, and I had like my mask on and I had all my shit, and I got my my balaclava and I got my hood and I'm all bundled up, and I'm just like, fuck this, man. Turned around and walked back down. Because I wasn't hung up on the summit. You know, I didn't need to get that summit. It would have been great. It would have been awesome. You know, it was clouded in, and the pics probably wouldn't have done it justice anyhow. But I didn't need the summit today. And my ego didn't need the summit today. My body wanted the hike. My mind needed the hike. I meditate when I hike. My brain just goes away. It's fucking lovely. But when I realized that it would be stupid to try and go for the summit, you know, in gusts like that by myself, I had no problem turning around and walking back down. And I was like, I high-fived some guys on the way by, and they're like, we're gonna go and get the summit. I'm like, good fucking luck, man. High five. And you know, and they went, maybe they did, maybe they didn't, I don't know. But I didn't, and I'm all right with that. And what I want to say is I was embracing the process today as opposed to my hopes for the outcome. And in that, the outcome of not summiting this mountain was fine with me. So I don't know. I guess that's all I have to say about that. But shit, it's like I'm trying to stay curious every day. I think I'm not religious, I'm spiritual, and I definitely lean Buddhist hard. I've really found that, and I feel that the more I learn, and I say that like I know anything about Buddhism. But what I'm learning and everything that I'm learning speaks to my soul. So there's that. Zach's got a vegan cookbook, which I need to get so I can try to make vegan food, because I need to stop eating meat because it's fucking mean. And I don't want to be a mean person anymore. Regular change. I try to keep my cup full. In the sense that like I'm real like mindfulness. I'm aware. My favorite acronym is HARM, right? Hungry, angry, HALT rather. Sorry, hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Like when I first start to feel like, all right, you're gonna be bitchy. Why are you gonna be bitchy? And then I try to analyze it from that point. I try to meditate on a regular basis. I try to do at least some yoga on a regular basis. I work out like it's a job. and I get out in nature as much as I can. I hike, I kayak. Um, I try to run, but I don't think my knee's going to be active running for a while. That's okay. Um, yeah, that's what I do now. And I go to AA. I keep some tools up my sleeve. Like I could text Carrie, I could text Zach, I could text Astrid and be like, "Hey guys, I'm in a bad place," and I would get some fucking help. I would get some help, and it might not be the help that I wanted, but it would be help, and I know that it would come, and there wouldn't be any strings attached. So it's like that's part of the network that I have in community and sober friends. Um, and I'm in Southern Maine. Those of you that don't know anything about Southern Maine, we have got one of the most solid recovery communities you can imagine. I mean, you can't swing a cat without hitting like 2 AA meetings. And I'm talking like in sunlight. So, so there's that. Um, Try not to run the race car in the red too often. When shit starts to get cagey, I give myself breaks. I take breaks. I'm aware that I need breaks. Um, I go to bars now. I go to bars and I get shit like, check this guy out. This is Gia, Ghia, which is an aperitif, and it is lime and salt. And it tastes just like an aperitif I had in Italy back in fucking like 2000. And it's not a trigger for me. It doesn't make me want to have any alcohol. It doesn't remind me of the bottles of wine and grappa that I started to drink after that. So I'm not recovered. I mean, I think if I went out and had a couple of drinks, I think it would be probably pretty damn quick before I was in a very, very bad way. And I don't deceive myself around that. So I don't try to tease myself. But I know my limits. I know when I need to say, all right, it's time to leave. I don't expose myself to places where like it's a party. I don't have an out. I always have a backup plan. I always have a means of escape. I always have a sober person I can call. But that's like how I've been rolling for 12 years. So it feels like it's just common practice now. It doesn't feel like it's a method.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And I mean, there are just like so many wisdom bombs that you dropped there. And, also it explains like why we just like bonded so fast and get along so well, because like I think we have very similar tools. You and like all of us in the Bigger Life Adventures crew, the curiosity, the activity, the more mindfulness, like Buddhist approach. Like you say, you don't know a lot about Buddhism, but I would beg to differ because, like your hiking experience today, like described it pretty well, like being unattached to outcomes, like being humble enough to like let go of results and just be mindful and present for like the experience, and like learning from that. Um, and yeah, so much more like the like activity, the nutrition, like all of that, the ability to like go anywhere and do anything. I mean, we also like come from a similar background because I also started out in AA and I also no longer attend, but it gave me a solid foundation. And then I was able to like expand from there and eventually realized that like a huge chunk of my definition of recovery is freedom. And so like freedom rather than constriction, like freedom to go to Burning Man, freedom to go to like different countries and shows and like bars if I have a reason, and like freedom to just like do things and not feel like I'm going to like have to hide myself away and only stay in like certain spaces. But that being said, there's also like mindfulness required to check in with yourself and be able to like assess like, why am I doing this? Why am I going here? Is this a good idea? Am I in a good place? Et cetera, et cetera. And like, yeah, so just kind of reflecting that back. So many good tips in what you've shared tonight. And I want anyone who's on here, if you have any questions, just type them in the chat and I'll kind of like moderate. But we'll wrap it up soon.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions too. And
Yeah.
just like, if you put this together as a recording and put it up wherever, I would take that too. And it's like, I will still feedback on wherever, people throw questions like that. That's fine too.
Yeah. I will totally edit it together and post the recording and um yeah, people can comment and then next time whoever else wants to share their story, feel free to volunteer. Next time we'll try to actually test the Zoom Facebook linkage more solidly beforehand. My bad. But my last question, since this is going to be posted in our Facebook group for Bigger Life Adventures, like if you don't mind, if you have anything to add about your experience with like Bigger Life Adventures retreats, and if that has added to your like recovery or recovery support circle in any way, not to stroke our egos, just to bring it all full circle.
Yeah, I see where this is going. I see where this is going. I'm gonna plug this. This is all marketing. I Bigger Life Adventures has been integral in the past. Jesus, how long have I known you guys now? 4 years? Like since I've met you, um, my sobriety has taken on new facets from what I've learned from you and through you at the groups, at your yoga in your yoga practice. You just in the mornings, and oh God, just everything that you have had to teach has been really influential and instrumental. I mean, like I mentioned, I could reach out to anyone at Bigger Life Adventures. I wouldn't feel badly or uncomfortable about doing that when it came down to my own recovery. Um, Yoga, I didn't realize the benefits of yoga and thereby, in a tertiary sense, right? Buddhism. I didn't realize how these could serve me on a greater and do a greater purpose in sobriety, and they have. Um, there have been so many things. I look forward to the retreats, not just I mean, like on so many different levels. The people that I've networked with, I mean, the sober folks, I've got like 40 people in my social media feed that I've met through you. And some of those folks I never see. Some of those folks I talk to every day. So it's like, holy shit, it's great. And I mean, there are people I can reach out, ring their bell, and be like, "How you been? Remember that time we had in freaking in the Catalinas? You remember that time we had in Rosarito?" And it's these are memories that I will draw on for the rest of my life. And I can't say enough good things about Bigger Life Adventures. The experiences have been just transcendental, been fucking amazing. Definitely. Um, I'm looking forward to the next one. I don't know what it's going to be, but yeah,
Hopefully soon.
definitely.
Yeah, and thanks to you, we were able to like add the White Mountains, New Hampshire location, and that, went so super well that we hope to schedule it again soon for fall 2025. And like, yeah, just, this community has been just more awesome than I ever could have imagined like 6.5 years ago when we started doing this. And so everyone who's on this Zoom and anyone who's watching this later, you're all a part of that. Thank you so much for just like, being here, being awesome, being real. And that's also why we want to keep sharing these stories, even with all the technical difficulties, is because we got to keep the vibes going, when we're not together, when we're not in person. And yeah, that being said, like anyone who's listening, watching to this, like if you'd like to share your recovery story at some point, just reach out to me. Doesn't have to be from addiction. I do believe that we're all recovering from something. So if you have like a story that you'd like to put out there, the power of vulnerability is really real. It really helps. I know that I've had people say like, they've gotten super nervous at the last minute and been really like apprehensive about it, which I totally, totally understand. And then afterwards have said, that felt so good. I'm so glad I did that. um, so, so yeah, just putting that out there. And I don't see any questions right now, but if people watching
Questions.
the recording, just type your questions in later. And Zach says, just want you to know that you are not any of those things that man said about you. Yeah, obviously. Oh,
Oh,
why did we have to have our first Zoom bombing experience ever tonight? I'm not sure, but such
thank you.
is
Thank
life. Sorry everyone who had to listen to that. Do you have anything else to close up with, Adam?
you. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I think this is a fantastic way to keep like one of the important tenets of the entire concept going. I mean, to keep our community alive. And I think there's a lot of power in storytelling. I think that this brings us closer. Um, so yeah, I appreciate what you're doing, and I'm glad. It's an honor to share with your community.
Aw, well, you're welcome. And just thank you so much for being brave, being vulnerable. I know it's like not easy for sure. I'm not saying it is. So, thank you. And thank you for everybody who got on live tonight. Sorry about the difficulties. Again, thank you for people watching the recording, and we'll see you next time.